3 y...
Unknown to many and surrounded by the Caribbean Sea, there is a beauty and exotic nation called Cuba. Let's discover the secrets of the capital city, Havana. This is a new narrated city walk tour in 4K by Wanna Walk. Important, this video won't show you the Cuba that only tourists see, but the Cuba they don't want you to know. Experience the true essence of Havana, a city that the media never shows. Get ready to be surprised by the authentic scenes that are beyond the Instagram and TikTok filters. You'll be amazed. You'll see the locals' day-to-day lives, their language, their culture, and their streets. Old Cuban cars, etc. You'll get a glimpse of the Cuba that is rarely seen by tourists.
Te van a arrebatar el programa.
Cuba is famous for its cigars, its rum made from sugarcane, its ladies, salsa, and other Cuban dance styles. Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, 1950s era cars, Spanish colonial architecture, Cuban National Ballet, Buena Vista Social Club, and Guantanamo Bay. Let's explore what is living in modern Cuba. Cuba has a population of 11.2 million people, and Havana has about 2.1 million. This makes it not only the largest city in Cuba, but also of the whole Caribbean. This tour offers a glimpse into the beauty and complexity of Cuban life. Immerse yourself in the rich history, distinctive culture, and lively music scene that make Cuba one of a kind. Come along and discover why Cuba is a destination like no other. Walking through the streets of Havana is a trip to another era. The decay is absolute but still of great beauty. The first thought could be some romantic idea of revolutionaries, cigars, rum, and steamy tropical nights, but things are a little bit different. So, what's the average wage in Cuba? The average pay in Cuba is about $15 a month. Yes, a month. Can you imagine having to support your relative with only that money per month? There are many local agriculture markets, as known as a mercado in Cuba. They are mainly organic foods because Cuba is not allowed to import chemical fertilizers and pesticides. If you're traveling to Cuba, be sure to pack toiletries such as toothpaste, shampoo, razors, and other essentials as they can be challenging to find in the country. This new Mercedes-Benz convertible obviously belongs to some politician or the son of some public official. It seems a bit unfair that the revolution is only for a few. What do you think? Despite the weather, butcher shops here do not use refrigerators. The The meat is all day under the sun. Notice how this person smells the scale to see if the meat is fresh. In the early 60s, Castro nationalized American businesses in Cuba, taking them over without compensating their owners. The United States government put an embargo or restriction on trade with Cuba a long time ago. This means that American companies cannot sell things to Cuba, and Cuban companies cannot sell things to America. Cuba can trade with the country they want, except US. In fact, Canada, UK, Netherlands, Spain, China, Brazil, France, Argentina, and Italy are among Cuba's top trading partners. Even some American companies, including Marriott and United Airlines, do business with Cuba. Cuba can negotiate and currently negotiates with more than 100 plus countries, including the food, medicines, and medical equipment it buys from the United States. Today, Cuba imports roughly 80% of the food from the U.S., which is the largest supply of food to Cuba. However, this embargo has made it difficult for the people in Cuba to get things that they need or want from America. So, some people think that the embargo should be lifted so that people in Cuba can have better access to goods and services. But the embargo is still in place today. Old Havana is an amazing place to walk around. See beautiful and varied architecture, historic buildings, lots of museums, lots of very good restaurants, and shops with art and souvenirs. Cuba has had a socialist political system since 1959 based on the one-state, one-party principle. Cuba is constitutionally defined as a Marxist-Leninist state. When you visit, make sure to venture outside of the tourist areas and explore the city. Engage with the locals, observe, inquire, and enjoy. Discover the breathtaking architecture of the city. But be careful, many buildings are falling apart. From the stunning colonial-style buildings to the colorful Art Deco and Art Nouveau structures. Each building tells a story of Havana's rich history and culture. This city used to be one of the most glamorous in the world less than a century ago. Cuba, recognized officially as the Republic of Cuba, is an island nation located in the Caribbean Sea. It encompasses not only the main island of Cuba, but also the island La Juventud or Island of the Youth, and several smaller archipelagos. Cuba is the largest island in the Caribbean. Havana is its capital and largest city.
Es malísimo.
Spanish is the official language of Cuba. The city has a population of 2.3 million inhabitants. The city of Havana was founded by the Spanish in the 16th century. It served as a springboard for the Spanish conquest of the Americas, becoming a stopping point for Spanish galleons returning to Spain. want to visit Cuba as an American and do it legally, you will need to obtain a Cuban visa in advance. This is also called a general license, and the Cuban government requires it to travel to Cuba. It can be a bit confusing, but calling it the general license is the way to go. Many Americans use as the people-to-people activities visa category. The best if to ask Cuba's embassy, a travel agency, or just check TripAdvisor for details. Americans cannot make financial transactions in Cuba. You can't use ATMs, debit cards, or credit cards, even if you have a visa, which means that you need to arrive with all the cash you need for your full stay. Cuba is a mandatory destination in the Caribbean, and for those who especially enjoy capitals full of culture and history. Why Cuba has old cars. After the Cuban Revolution, the U.S. embargo was erected and Castro banned the importation of American cars and mechanical pots. That's why Cuba is the way it is today, a living museum for classic cars. This adorable little dog is called Canelita, and she loves to be petted, so if you see her, be sure to do it. In Cuba there are queues for everything. Usually, people spend 5 hours waiting to buy cookies, chicken, or a liter of oil. Each product is sold in a different place and on an assigned day with a ration card. Naturally, there is a black market and also stores where only those who have dollars or euros can buy it. The prices are almost 3 times what you would pay for the same thing in Europe or the United States. Cuba has long lines for nearly everything you might need to do while on vacation there. They invented an ingenious system for making lines bearable. When you arrive at the bank or bakery or wherever else you need to wait, first ask who's last in line. In Spanish, "Quien es el último?" Whoever is last will tell you. The country is literally falling apart. There is garbage and lack of maintenance in every corner. Even so, it is very interesting to go through. Cuban government provides housing, so Cubans do not have to pay taxes, rent, or mortgages either. Basic food is also subsidized through the individualized ration book that every Cuban receives. The distance from Havana to Paris is 4,800 miles or 7,700 kilometers. Cuba is a small island country located in the Caribbean Sea at the entrance to the Gulf of Mexico at just 90 miles or 140 kilometers of U.S. border. If you're looking for a delicious meal in Havana, I highly recommend checking out Los Nardos, located just 2 blocks from Capitolio. Their fish consular is a must-try, featuring a fresh fish fillet stuffed with ham and cheese and breaded to perfection. You won't be disappointed. If you go one day, tell them you come from Wanna Walk and they will give you a good discount. Just kidding, they don't know me. U.S. credit and debit cards do not work in Cuba. You should bring U.S. dollars or euros to Cuba and exchange them for Cuban pesos at authorized banks. I recommend you talk to a taxi driver and change the dollars to him. You will get almost double Cuban pesos. Be careful, it's not legal, but everyone does it. So, do you like rain? I love it. Experience the true power of nature in Cuba, where rainstorms are not just showers, but deluges that can lead to flooding. Witness the awe-inspiring sight of rain clouds rolling in from nowhere, only to disappear just as quickly, replaced by the warmth of the radiant sun. Don't just take our word for it. Check out our channel for captivating rain walks not just in Havana, but around the world. The heaviest rain usually falls in September and October. Despite the rain, the temperature remains warm and humid during this time. The average temperature in Cuba is around 27 to 30 Celsius or 81 to 86 Fahrenheit, with little variation throughout the year. The island is also affected by hurricanes, which typically occur during the summer and fall months. Cuba has a tropical climate with warm temperatures and high humidity year-round. The island is affected by 2 main seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. The dry season runs from November to April, and during this time, the island experiences less rainfall and more sunny days. This is the most popular time for tourists to visit the island, as the weather is generally more pleasant and there is less chance of rain. Can you drink tap water in Cuba? As a general rule, you should avoid tap water in Cuba and stick to drinking bottled water. Cuba is affordable for tourists. Compared to other Caribbean destinations, prices for accommodation, food, and transportation are generally lower than in other popular tourist destinations in the region. Except for greengrocers and butchers, there are very few shops, and the few that do exist have literally no merchandise to sell. A taxi from the airport to center of Old Town will cost you about $25, but be sure to ask before. Cubans love their NBA jerseys. Most of them were Michael Jordan jerseys. LeBron jerseys and Celtics merchandise were popular choices as well. I'm fairly certain I didn't see merchandise from any other sport. A bit surprising, I expected Cubans to be more fans of baseball than basketball. Cuba's capital, Havana, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a popular tourist destination. If you like Cuba, please share this video on social media so more people can discover this country. Also, comment and subscribe to Wanna Walk. Cuba is home to many famous writers, including Jose Marti, considered the national hero and an important figure in Latin American literature. Fidel Castro's brother Raul Castro took power in 2008 and introduced some market-oriented economic changes, such as allowing some forms of private enterprise, but the government still maintains a strong control over the economy and political system. The country is also home to many important historical sites, such as the Bay of Pigs and the Che Guevara Mausoleum. The country has a rich sports culture and is known for its baseball and boxing teams. Cuba is home to over 400 species of birds, many of which are found nowhere else in the world.
Llego a Puerto, voy para Miami. De Alto Cerro voy para Macané. Llego a Puerto, voy para Miami. Sí. Que yo me quiero sentar en aquel tronco que veo y así no puedo llegar. De Alto Cerro voy para Macané, llego a Puerto, voy para Miami. De Alto Cerro voy para Macané, llego a Puerto, voy para Miami. Voy para Macané, llego a Puerto, voy para Miami. Ay, me voy para Argentina, hoy en día me voy en ese tren. De Alto Cerro voy para Macané, llego a Puerto, voy para Miami. Ay, de Argentina voy a subir a México, vamos, mira, mira mi compadre. De Alto Cerro voy para Macané, llego a Puerto, voy para Miami. Para bailar la música cubana, mira, esa no tiene reparo. Voy para Macané, llego a Puerto, voy para Miami. Ahí vamos a repetirlo veces. Oye, no hay comida, voy allá en el tren. Cero, voy para Macané, llego a Puerto, voy para Miami. Ya Cero, voy para Macané, llego a Puerto, voy. Para
Like everything in Cuba, as for data coverage it's very slow, but most of the time works fine. Please note that many popular websites are blocked by Cuban government. Cuba is a mandatory destination in the Caribbean and for those who especially enjoy capitals full of culture and history. If you love Cuba, share this with friends on your social networks and subscribe to Wanna Walk to watch more. sure to subscribe to Wanna Walk. New videos around the world every week. Please like, comment, and share the video with friends on social media.
¿Qué cañón es eso? La caña abuela.
No puedo, ensaya.
Cuban culture is heavily influenced by its history, including Spanish colonization and the country's relationship with the United States. This has resulted in a unique blend of Caribbean, African, and Spanish influences in Cuban art, music, and cuisine. The classic cars really are a thing in Cuba. Everyone knows about Cuba's classic cars, and it's entertaining to see what drives down the street. You see a lot of Russian cars like Ladas. The nicest, shiniest classic cars are used for expensive taxi rides and city tours for tourists. Cubans are known for their warmth and hospitality, and place a strong emphasis on family and community. They tend to be expressive and passionate in their communication and are often very animated and physical in their body language. Cuba's political system is socialist, and it operates under a one-party system, where the Communist Party of Cuba is the only legal political party. The country operates under a planned economy, and the government controls most of the major industries and sectors. It feels like every Cuban is a talented singer, dancer, or musician. I loved almost all of the Cubans I met, and it seems like Cubans really take the time to savor and enjoy life. One of the ways is by sharing music. Just a casual band playing in a bar at 2:00 p.m. could be one of the best bands you've ever heard. Cuba receives over 2.5 million visitors annually, and tourism is now one of the country's biggest economic drivers, and 80% of them are Canadians. Is Coca-Cola served in Cuba? No. Most Cubans simply drink water or locally produced soft drinks like Cola. A city trapped in time, Havana captures the imagination like no other. Faded glamour meets careful colonial air reconstruction with a backdrop of irresistible color. And listen for salsa music, open-air bazaars, and parties that last all night. The country has a large number of well-trained doctors and nurses, and has also exported medical personnel to other countries in need.
Restaurante para doña.
Vamos, limones, limones.
Ahora no tiene una cosa con la otra.
Vamos, limones.
The famous Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, when the U.S. and the Soviet Union almost went to war over the USSR's placement of nuclear missiles in Cuba. Ernest Hemingway wrote The Old Man and the Sea while living on an island approximately 10 miles away from here. Cuba can be quite a curious country. We can easily proclaim that it is one of the most unique and interesting countries in the American continent. can walk around Cuba on your own. Yes, but don't walk alone at night. Exercise the same caution you would while walking around a big city in your home country after nightfall.
Me sentamos a la sombra del olvido y tu luz radiante me echó a
The country has a strong education and healthcare system, which are both free and accessible to all citizens. Not talking about the quality, I just describe how it works. The country has a high literacy rate of over 96%, and it is compulsory for all children aged 6 to 14 to attend school, and they have a high life expectancy of 78 years and a low infant mortality rate. Throughout Havana, you see vegetable carts pushed through the street. These carts are almost always laden with onions, peppers, and tomatoes. Occasionally you might see sweet potatoes, bitter oranges, or garlic, but there's very little variety. There are many others Cuba videos on the channel. Be sure to check them later. Also, there are more videos on the channel: Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, US, Spain, UK, Morocco, Portugal, Paraguay, and more. Check them all later. The island has a diverse cuisine that combines African, Spanish, and Caribbean influences. Bring mosquito repellent with you to Cuba, as it can be difficult to find in the country. Have you been to Cuba? How did you like it? The U.S. and Cuba have had a complex relationship with a long history of political tension and economic sanctions. Some cool Cuba places to visit include Havana, Camagüey, Santiago, Cuba, Holguin, and Guantanamo outside of the jail. Recent years have seen a thawing of relations, with the reopening of the U.S. Embassy in Havana in 2015 and the lifting of some travel restrictions. Cuba is a country with a strong cultural identity and a rich history. It is a destination that offers a unique and diverse experience to visitors.
Las rayitas solo en cuánto salen.
Although Cubans are very friendly, you should know that many will approach you to ask for money or sell you dubious things that I can't mention here. Food in Cuba is not of great quality, but comes at an incredibly low price. A couple of dollars could get you food for the entire day. I'm talking where locals buy, no restaurants and hotels. Cuba has a kaleidoscope of cultures, a mixture of native, African, and European, creating a unique population that adds so much to the magic of the country. The island is also home to a number of famous musicians and bands, such as Buena Vista Social Club, Los Van Van, and Los Menequitos Matanzas. Every day that you went out in Havana, especially Old Havana, you feel a little bit stressed. Not only because the hard life you see, but also because people constantly ask if I wanted to buy something or if you need a taxi. It was noisy, hot, and unpleasant smells permeated the air. And as nice as those classic cars are, they produce a disgusting amount of exhaust that fills the air and clings to the buildings. The streets and sidewalks were so broken that you had to constantly watch your step.
No, te digo como 3 veces, perra. Mira, ya
Ahí que vengo a ver.
Va a salir el Facebook.
Familia. No.
Handmade crafts, cigars, and rum can be affordable, priced between $20 or so.
No, mami, la leche no con
Unfortunately, it was very difficult to find decent food in Havana. The best food in Cuba tends to be in the countryside, not the cities. The Malecan is a broad esplanade, roadway, and sea wall that stretches for a few miles along the coast in Havana from the mouth of Havana Harbor in Old Havana. Cuba has a rich history and culture, which has been shaped by centuries of colonialism, revolution, and resistance. Cuba is a destination that offers a unique blend of culture, history, and natural beauty. It's a country that is more than worth visiting to experience something different and authentic. Cuba is also known for its rich history of Afro-Caribbean religions, such as Santeria and Palo Monte, which have their roots in the West African Yoruba and Congo cultures. Cuba has a diverse ecosystem, with a wide variety of plant and animal species, many of which are found nowhere else in the world. Prices for accommodation in Havana, Cuba range from budget-friendly guest houses and homestays to luxury resorts. A budget-friendly guest house or homestay can cost around $15 to $30 per night, while a mid-range hotel can cost around $50 to $70 per night. Luxury resorts can cost upwards of $100 per night. Although the people of Cuba are known as Cubans, those who live in Havana are known as habaneros. Eating out in Cuba is relatively affordable, with prices ranging from $2 to $5 for street food to $10 to $15 for a meal in a mid-range restaurant. Eating at a high-end restaurant or hotel can be more expensive, with prices ranging from $20 to $30 per meal. In Cuba, you can eat in a paladar, a small, family-run restaurant. Paladares serve as a counterpart to state-run restaurants. Prices for souvenirs and other items in Cuba can vary depending on the location and type of item, but they are usually cheap. Handmade crafts, cigars, and rum can be relatively affordable, with prices ranging from $5 to $20. Prices for luxury items such as jewelry and designer clothing can be higher. Cuban cuisine is a delicious fusion of African, Caribbean, and Spanish flavors.
Hola.
The island was first inhabited by the Taino people, who were later conquered by the Spanish in the 15th century. Life in Cuba is not easy, but if you decide to live in Cuba, you will enjoy the warmth of the people, the happy and vibrant lifestyle, the agreeable climate, and an inviting, intense, and colorful culture. Everything else won't be easy. Interesting and little-known facts about Cuba. Christmas was banned here for 30 years. Dominoes is a national Cuban pastime. When viewed from above, Cuba's main island looks like a crocodile, earning it the nickname El Cocodrilo. Christopher Columbus discovered Cuba for Europe in 1492 and claimed it in the name of Spain, believing it to be mainland China. Between the years of 1808 and 1898, 5 different U.S. presidents tried to buy Cuba from the Spanish. Cuba has the highest proportion of doctors in the world. Until 2008, the ownership of mobile telephones was banned in Cuba. Prior to 2000, it was illegal to play the Beatles, as Castro felt they represented mindless consumerism. Where to stay in Cuba? Hotels definitely exist in Cuba. They tend to be large properties and beach resorts. But if you want to stay somewhere more local and special, and put money into the pockets of Cuban citizens who need it, I recommend staying in casas particulares. I hope you have enjoyed this Cuba walking tour today. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching.